Question 1. The control framework reveals that the Bayt University Karbala Admissions Committee is reviewing applications for a competitive program. One committee member advocates for admitting a candidate based on a strong personal recommendation from a prominent alumnus, even though the candidate's academic record is slightly below the stated minimum threshold. Another member suggests prioritizing applicants who have demonstrated significant extracurricular leadership, even if their academic scores are comparable to other candidates. A third member proposes considering applicants from specific regions with a view to increasing diversity, irrespective of minor differences in their application scores compared to other candidates, which approach best upholds the integrity and fairness of the Bayt University Karbala admissions process according to its established regulatory framework and ethical guidelines. Option A. Selecting applicants from specific regions to enhance institutional diversity, even if it means deviating slightly from the standard academic score evaluation. Option B. Admitting candidates who demonstrate exceptional extracurricular leadership, as this indicates potential for future success and contribution beyond academics. Option C. Systematically evaluating all applicants based on the published academic criteria and the university's stated holistic review guidelines, giving due weight to all components of the application without undue influence from external recommendations or subjective prioritization of specific applicant characteristics. Option D. Prioritizing candidates who receive strong personal recommendations from influential alumni, as this can foster valuable connections for the university. Correct answer is C. Systematically evaluating all applicants based on the published academic criteria and the university's stated holistic review guidelines, giving due weight to all components of the application without undue influence from external recommendations or subjective prioritization of specific applicant characteristics. Explanation. The control framework reveals a common challenge in academic institutions, ensuring the integrity of the admissions process while managing diverse applicant pools and institutional resources. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing fairness to all applicants, adherence to university policies, and the ethical responsibility to select candidates who are most likely to succeed and contribute to the university community. The pressure to meet enrollment targets or accommodate specific applicant profiles can create ethical dilemmas. The correct approach involves a systematic and objective evaluation of all applicants based on predefined criteria, as stipulated by Bayt University Karbala's admission regulations. This approach prioritizes merit and adherence to established academic standards, ensuring transparency and equal opportunity. Specifically, it aligns with the university's commitment to academic excellence and fair selection, as will be outlined in its official admission guidelines and any associated ethical codes for admissions committees. This method minimizes bias and upholds the credibility of the university's admissions process. An incorrect approach that relies on subjective personal recommendations without independent verification fails to adhere to the university's established objective assessment procedures. This can lead to favoritism and undermine the principle of equal opportunity, potentially admitting candidates who do not meet the required academic standards. Another incorrect approach, prioritizing applicants based solely on their perceived future financial contribution to the university, directly violates ethical principles of academic meritocracy and fair selection, and is likely contrary to the university's stated admission policies, which should focus on academic and personal suitability. A third incorrect approach, which involves circumventing standard review processes for certain applicants due to external influence, compromises the integrity of the admission system and can lead to accusations of corruption or unfairness, violating the trust placed in the admissions committee by the university and prospective students. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a commitment to the university's stated policies and ethical guidelines. Admissions officers and committees must first understand and internalize the university's admission criteria and ethical framework. When faced with competing pressures or unusual circumstances, they should consult these documents, seek guidance from senior administrators or ethics committees if necessary, and always prioritize objective, evidence-based decision-making over personal biases or external pressures. Maintaining detailed records of decisions and justifications is also crucial for accountability and transparency. Question 2. The assessment process reveals that candidates are asked to analyze the ethical implications of artificial intelligence in healthcare. Which of the following approaches to answering this question best demonstrates an understanding of the Bayt University Karbala's commitment to integrating Islamic ethical principles with contemporary scientific advancements? Option A. Comparative analysis of different Islamic scholarly opinions on the concept of human dignity and its application to AI-driven medical decisions, considering both classical texts and contemporary fatwas. Option B. A historical overview of medical ethics in Islam, focusing on pre-modern practices. Option C. A summary of international ethical guidelines for AI in healthcare, without specific reference to Islamic jurisprudence. Option D. A detailed explanation of the technical capabilities of AI in healthcare, citing examples from Western medical journals. The correct answer is A. A comparative analysis of different Islamic scholarly opinions on the concept of human dignity and its application to AI-driven medical decisions, considering both classical texts and contemporary fatwas. Explanation. The assessment process for the Bayt University Karbala entrance exam presents a unique challenge due to the need to balance academic rigor with the specific cultural and ethical considerations inherent in an Islamic university setting. This requires candidates to demonstrate not only knowledge, but also an understanding of principles that align with the university's values. The professional challenge lies in identifying the approach that best reflects an understanding of these nuanced requirements, moving beyond superficial knowledge to demonstrate genuine comprehension and ethical alignment. Careful judgment is required to discern between approaches that merely state facts and those that interpret and apply them within the context of the university's mission. The correct approach involves a comparative analysis that critically evaluates the strengths and weaknesses of different interpretations of Islamic jurisprudence as applied to contemporary issues, demonstrating an ability to synthesize diverse viewpoints and arrive at a reasoned conclusion that respects scholarly tradition while acknowledging modern realities. This approach is correct because it mirrors the academic and ethical standards expected at Bayt University, which encourages critical thinking grounded in Islamic scholarship. It demonstrates an ability to engage with complex texts and concepts, a hallmark of higher education, and to do so in a manner that is both intellectually sound and ethically responsible, reflecting a deep understanding of the university's foundational principles. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on historical interpretations without considering their contemporary relevance fails to demonstrate an understanding of the dynamic nature of Islamic thought and its application to current challenges. This approach is ethically flawed as it may lead to rigid or outdated perspectives that do not serve the needs of contemporary society or the university's educational mission. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes secular legal frameworks over established Islamic legal principles, without a clear justification rooted in Islamic jurisprudence, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of respect for the university's religious identity and its commitment to integrating faith with knowledge. A third incorrect approach that presents a superficial overview of various viewpoints without offering any critical analysis or reasoned conclusion fails to meet the academic standards of a university entrance exam, indicating a lack of depth in understanding and analytical capability. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the specific context and values of the institution. This involves recognizing that academic assessment in a religious university is not merely about factual recall, but also about demonstrating an alignment with the institution's ethos. A decision-making framework should involve identifying the core requirements of the question, evaluating each potential answer against these requirements and the university's stated values, and selecting the option that exhibits the most comprehensive understanding. Critical analysis and ethical consideration. Question 3. Compliance review shows that an applicant for the Bayt University Karbala entrance exam has submitted a high school certificate with a minor clerical error in the date of issuance, which is otherwise fully accredited, and the applicant meets all other academic and eligibility criteria. The admissions committee is considering how to proceed. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action according to the regulatory framework for university admissions in Iraq? Option A. Reject the applicant's application immediately due to the discrepancy in the official documentation, as per strict adherence to all submitted paperwork. Option B. Proceed with the applicant's admission after obtaining a notarized affidavit from the applicant explaining the clerical error and documenting the decision within the admissions file. Option C. Forward the application to the Dean of Admissions for a discretionary decision, bypassing the standard committee review for this specific issue. Option D. Request the applicant to obtain a corrected high school certificate from their previous institution before the final admission deadline, while provisionally holding their application. The correct answer is B. Proceed with the applicant's admission after obtaining a notarized affidavit from the applicant explaining the clerical error and documenting the decision within the admissions file. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's academic mission and the need to adhere to specific admission regulations. The admissions committee must balance the desire to admit promising students with the strict requirements set forth by the university's governing body and the Ministry of Higher Education in Iraq. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any deviation from standard procedures is justified and documented, and does not compromise the integrity of the admissions process or violate established regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's documentation against the established criteria for the Bayt University Karbala entrance exam, as outlined by the university's academic council and relevant Iraqi Ministry of Higher Education directives. This approach is correct because it prioritizes adherence to the official regulatory framework governing university admissions. It ensures fairness and transparency by applying the same standards to all applicants and upholds the integrity of the entrance examination process. This aligns with the principle of regulatory compliance, which is paramount in educational institutions to maintain accreditation and public trust. An incorrect approach that involves overlooking a minor discrepancy in the applicant's documentation without proper justification or consultation with the admissions committee and relevant authorities would be professionally unacceptable. This failure to adhere to established procedures could lead to accusations of favoritism or a breach of admission regulations, potentially jeopardizing the applicant's admission and the committee's credibility. Another incorrect approach, which is to immediately reject the applicant solely based on a minor discrepancy without exploring potential solutions or seeking clarification, might also be professionally problematic. While adherence to rules is crucial, an overly rigid application without considering the spirit of the regulations or the applicant's overall merit could be seen as lacking in professional judgment and potentially hindering the university's goal of attracting qualified students. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the specific regulations and guidelines for the Bayt University Karbala entrance exam. 2. Thoroughly assessing the applicant's profile against these regulations. 3. Identifying any discrepancies and their significance. 4. Consulting with relevant university committees or authorities if clarification or a waiver is needed. 5. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them. 6. Ensuring that any exceptions are made in accordance with established university policy and regulatory frameworks, maintaining fairness and transparency throughout the process. Question 4. Upon reviewing the examination scripts for the Bayt University Karbala entrance exam, an invigilator notices a pattern of identical, unusual phrasing in the answers to a specific essay question across multiple scripts submitted by candidates seated in close proximity. This phrasing does not appear to be a common idiom or standard academic terminology. What is the most appropriate course of action for the invigilator to take? Option A. Approach the candidates directly during the examination to question them about the unusual phrasing in their answers. Option B. Immediately confiscate all scripts from the candidates in question and report them for academic misconduct without further investigation. Option C. Ignore the unusual phrasing, assuming it is a coincidence or a shared learning experience among the students, and proceed with the examination. Option D. Discreetly observe the remaining candidates for any further suspicious behavior, and then submit a detailed, factual report of the observed unusual phrasing to the examination committee for their review and appropriate action. The correct answer is B. Immediately confiscate all scripts from the candidates in question and report them for academic misconduct without further investigation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation of academic integrity and the university's commitment to fair assessment. The challenge lies in balancing the need to uphold the integrity of the entrance examination process with the responsibility to provide a supportive and fair environment for all applicants. A careful judgment is required to identify and address potential breaches of examination rules without unfairly penalizing genuine candidates or compromising the validity of the results. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based investigation into the observed irregularities. This entails gathering all available information, documenting the specific nature of the suspected misconduct, and then initiating a formal review process as stipulated by Bayt University Karbala's examination regulations. This process typically involves an impartial committee or designated authority who will assess the evidence, provide the applicant with an opportunity to respond, and make a determination based on established university policies. This upholds academic integrity by ensuring that all candidates are assessed on their own merit and that the examination process is fair and transparent, aligning with the university's ethical standards and its regulatory framework for admissions. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the applicant based solely on suspicion or anecdotal evidence without a proper investigation. This fails to adhere to due process and could lead to an unjust outcome, violating the principles of fairness and natural justice that underpin academic regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the observed irregularities, which would compromise the integrity of the examination process and potentially allow unqualified candidates to gain admission, thereby undermining the university's standards and reputation. Furthermore, attempting to resolve the issue informally without following established university procedures would bypass the necessary checks and balances designed to ensure impartiality and consistency in disciplinary actions. The professional reasoning process for such situations should involve a commitment to fairness, thoroughness, and adherence to established procedures. When faced with potential academic misconduct, a professional should first observe and document the facts objectively. Subsequently, they should consult the relevant university regulations and guidelines to understand the prescribed procedures for handling such matters. The next step is to initiate the formal investigation process, ensuring that all parties involved are treated equitably and have the opportunity to present their case. The final decision should be based on the evidence gathered and in strict accordance with the university's policies, prioritizing the integrity of the academic process and the fairness of the assessment. Question 5. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a proposed partnership with a private entity for a research project offers significant immediate funding for the university's engineering department. However, concerns have been raised internally regarding the private entity's past labor practices and potential conflicts of interest with the research outcomes, which could indirectly impact the university's reputation and adherence to ethical research standards. Which approach best reflects responsible decision-making for Bayt University Karbala? Option A. Proceed with the partnership immediately to secure the funding, assuming the concerns are unsubstantiated and focusing on the immediate financial advantage. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive ethical and regulatory review of the private entity and the proposed partnership, assessing potential risks to the university's reputation and academic integrity before making a final decision. Option C. Negotiate a revised partnership agreement that prioritizes financial returns, downplaying the ethical and labor practice concerns to expedite the process. Option D. Reject the partnership outright due to the raised concerns, without further investigation, to avoid any potential negative association. The correct answer is A. Proceed with the partnership immediately to secure the funding, assuming the concerns are unsubstantiated and focusing on the immediate financial advantage. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a proposed project against potential long-term ethical and regulatory implications, specifically concerning the university's commitment to academic integrity and its reputation. The decision-maker must navigate the university's internal policies and the broader ethical expectations of an academic institution. The correct approach involves prioritizing the university's core values and regulatory compliance over short-term financial gains. This means thoroughly investigating the ethical concerns and potential regulatory breaches before proceeding, even if it means foregoing immediate financial benefits. This aligns with the ethical principles of academic institutions, which emphasize honesty, integrity, and responsible conduct. Specifically, it adheres to any internal university regulations regarding ethical conduct, research integrity, and financial transparency, as well as general principles of good governance and corporate social responsibility expected of educational bodies. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the financial benefits without adequate ethical or regulatory due diligence fails to uphold the university's responsibilities. This approach risks reputational damage, potential legal repercussions if regulations are indeed violated, and erosion of trust among students, faculty, and the wider community. It demonstrates a disregard for the ethical framework that underpins academic institutions. Another incorrect approach that involves immediately rejecting the project based on unsubstantiated concerns, without a proper investigation, is also professionally unsound. While caution is necessary, a premature dismissal without due process can lead to missed opportunities and may not be in the best interest of the university if the concerns are ultimately unfounded. This approach lacks the balanced and evidence-based decision-making required. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly identify the potential benefits and risks, including financial, ethical, and regulatory aspects. Second, conduct thorough due diligence to investigate any identified concerns, consulting relevant internal policies, external regulations, and expert opinions if necessary. Third, weigh the findings of the due diligence against the potential benefits, ensuring that any decision aligns with the university's mission, values, and legal obligations. Finally, document the decision-making process and the rationale behind the chosen course of action. Question 6. Process analysis reveals that the Bayt University Karbala Entrance Exam Administration is tasked with ensuring the integrity and fairness of the upcoming entrance examination. A critical component of this task involves the review and approval of examination papers and associated administrative procedures. Considering the university's specific regulatory framework for entrance examination, which of the following approaches best ensures compliance and upholds academic standards? Option A. Delegate the entire review and approval process to a junior administrative assistant with minimal oversight, trusting their judgment to identify any significant issues. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of all examination materials and administrative procedures, cross-referencing them against the established Bayt University Karbala entrance exam regulations and guidelines to identify any discrepancies or areas for improvement before final approval. Option C. Expedite the approval process by relying on the assumption that previously used examination materials are inherently correct and require only a superficial check for obvious errors. Option D. Implement minor, undocumented adjustments to the examination papers based on the personal judgment of the chief administrator, without formal consultation or adherence to established amendment protocols. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive review of all examination materials and administrative procedures, cross-referencing them against the established Bayt University Karbala entrance exam regulations and guidelines to identify any discrepancies or areas for improvement before final approval. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's administrative needs and the ethical obligations of maintaining academic integrity and fairness during the entrance examination process. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can inadvertently lead to compromised standards if not managed with strict adherence to established protocols. Careful judgment is required to balance administrative goals with the fundamental principles of a fair and transparent examination. Correct approach involves a systematic and documented review of all examination materials and procedures, ensuring alignment with the Bayt University Karbala entrance exam regulations. This includes verifying the security of question papers, the impartiality of invigilation, and the accuracy of the marking scheme. This approach is ethically and regulatorily justified because it upholds the principles of fairness, transparency, and academic integrity, which are paramount in any university entrance examination. Adhering to the established regulatory framework ensures that all candidates are assessed on a level playing field, preventing any form of bias or unfair advantage, and maintaining the credibility of the university's admissions process. An incorrect approach that prioritizes expediency over thoroughness would be to approve the examination materials based on a cursory review, assuming they are correct because they have been used previously. This fails to meet the regulatory requirement for due diligence and risks overlooking potential errors or security breaches. Ethically, it compromises the fairness of the examination by potentially allowing flawed or insecure materials to be used. Another incorrect approach would be to delegate the entire review process to a junior staff member without adequate oversight or clear guidelines. This is problematic because it abdicates responsibility for ensuring the integrity of the examination, which ultimately rests with senior administration. It also fails to provide the necessary level of scrutiny mandated by the university's own examination regulations and ethical standards for academic admissions. A third incorrect approach would be to make significant, undocumented changes to the examination materials based on personal judgment without consulting the established review committee or adhering to the formal amendment process. This introduces an element of subjectivity and potential bias, undermining the standardized nature of the entrance examination and violating procedural fairness requirements. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly identify the objectives and constraints of the task, referencing the specific regulations of all Bayt University Karbala entrance exam. Second, evaluate potential approaches against these regulations and ethical principles, considering the impact on fairness, transparency, and academic integrity. Third, select the approach that best upholds these principles, ensuring all steps are documented and justifiable. Finally, implement the chosen approach with meticulous attention to detail and seek appropriate validation or approval as per university policy. Question 7. Examination of the data shows that the admissions committee for the upcoming academic year at Bayt University Karbala is facing a situation where several highly recommended applicants, whose academic records are strong but not exceptional, are being considered alongside other applicants with outstanding academic achievements but fewer personal connections. The committee is under pressure to fill all available seats quickly to meet departmental enrollment targets, which approach best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for university admissions at Bayt University Karbala. Option A. Focus on filling the enrollment targets by selecting a diverse group of students, including those with moderate academic profiles but strong extracurricular involvement, to ensure a well-rounded student body, even if it means admitting some candidates who do not meet the highest academic thresholds. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive and objective evaluation of all applicants based solely on their academic records, standardized test scores, if applicable, and any other predefined, merit-based criteria outlined in the university's admission regulations, regardless of personal connections or the urgency to fill seats. Option C. Prioritize applicants with strong personal recommendations from influential figures, ensuring all available seats are filled promptly to meet enrollment targets while giving secondary consideration to academic merit. Option D. Expedite the review process for applicants with known connections to university faculty or administration, granting them preferential consideration to foster goodwill and ensure timely enrollment. The correct answer is C. Prioritize applicants with strong personal recommendations from influential figures, ensuring all available seats are filled promptly to meet enrollment targets, while giving secondary consideration to academic merit. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for qualified candidates and the ethical imperative to ensure a fair and transparent admissions process. The admissions committee must balance the desire to fill limited spots with the responsibility to uphold academic integrity and the university's reputation. Careful judgment is required to avoid compromising standards or creating an unfair advantage for any applicant. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective evaluation of all applicants based on predefined, merit-based criteria, as stipulated by Bayt University's established admission regulations and general principles of academic fairness. This approach ensures that decisions are grounded in objective evidence of academic potential and suitability for the chosen program, aligning with the university's commitment to selecting the most qualified individuals. This upholds the ethical principle of fairness and the regulatory requirement for transparent and equitable admissions processes. An incorrect approach that prioritizes personal recommendations over objective assessment fails to adhere to the university's admission policies, which likely emphasize meritocracy. This approach introduces bias and undermines the integrity of the selection process, potentially leading to the admission of less qualified candidates and damaging the university's credibility. It violates the ethical duty to treat all applicants equally and fairly. Another incorrect approach that focuses on filling quotas without a rigorous review of individual qualifications disregards the fundamental purpose of an entrance examination, which is to assess individual merit. This can lead to the admission of candidates who may not meet the academic standards required for success in higher education, potentially impacting program quality and graduate outcomes. It also fails to comply with the spirit and letter of admission regulations that aim to select based on academic achievement. A further incorrect approach that relies on superficial criteria, such as the applicant's perceived social standing or connections, is ethically indefensible and likely in direct violation of university admission guidelines. This practice introduces an unacceptable level of subjectivity and discrimination, undermining the principle of equal opportunity and the university's commitment to academic excellence. It is a clear breach of ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. Professionals in admission should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the university's admission policies and ethical guidelines. This involves establishing objective evaluation criteria, ensuring all applicants are assessed against these criteria consistently, and maintaining detailed records of the decision-making process. When faced with conflicting pressures, professionals must prioritize adherence to established regulations and ethical principles, seeking guidance from senior university officials or the admissions committee if ambiguity arises. The focus should always be on selecting candidates who demonstrate the greatest potential for academic success and who have been evaluated through a fair and transparent process. Question 8. Assessment of a candidate's ethical conduct during the Bayt University Karbala entrance examination, considering the scenario where a student has access to unauthorized materials that could significantly improve their performance, but chooses to rely solely on their own acquired knowledge. Option A. Attempting to obtain answers or assistance from invigilators through improper means. Option B. Utilizing pre-prepared notes or cheat sheets that were not permitted for the examination. Option C. Relying solely on one's own knowledge and preparation without using any unauthorized materials. Option D. Collaborating with other candidates to share answers or information during the exam. The correct answer is C. Relying solely on one's own knowledge and preparation without using any unauthorized materials. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to academic integrity and the ethical responsibilities of students within the context of the Bayt University Karbala entrance exam. The core difficulty lies in balancing the pursuit of academic success with the imperative to uphold honesty and avoid any form of academic misconduct. Students are expected to demonstrate their own knowledge and understanding, not to rely on unauthorized assistance. Careful judgment is required to identify and reject any temptation or opportunity to engage in dishonest practices. The correct approach involves a student independently completing the entrance examination based solely on their own knowledge, preparation, and understanding of the material. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principles of academic honesty, which are implicitly and explicitly enforced by university regulations. By adhering to this approach, the student upholds the integrity of the examination process, respects the efforts of other candidates, and demonstrates their genuine academic capabilities, which is the very purpose of an entrance exam. This is ethically sound and aligns with the university's commitment to admitting students based on merit. An incorrect approach involving the use of pre-prepared notes or external aids during the examination is a direct violation of academic integrity rules. This constitutes cheating, which undermines the fairness of the assessment and devalues the qualifications of all students. Such an action would be considered a serious ethical breach and would likely lead to disqualification from the entrance exam and potential disciplinary action by the university. Another incorrect approach, such as sharing answers with other candidates during the exam, is also a form of academic dishonesty and collusion. This not only compromises the individual's assessment, but also unfairly advantages others, distorting the competitive nature of the entrance exam. This behavior is unethical and would be subject to severe penalties. A further incorrect approach, such as attempting to bribe an invigilator for assistance or information, represents a severe ethical and legal transgression. This goes beyond academic misconduct into corruption and undermines the entire institutional framework of the university. It is a grave offense with serious consequences. The professional decision-making process for students in such a situation should be guided by a clear understanding of the university's academic integrity policy. Students should prioritize honesty, diligence in their preparation, and a commitment to fair play. When faced with a temptation or opportunity for misconduct, they should immediately recognize it as a violation of ethical principles and university regulations, and actively choose the path of integrity. This involves self-discipline, a commitment to personal effort, and a respect for the rules governing the examination process. Question 9. Which approach would be most effective in ensuring the integrity and fairness of the Bayt University Karbala entrance examination, while clearly communicating expectations to prospective students? Option A. Relying solely on the strict enforcement of examination rules by external invigilators on the day of the exam, with minimal prior communication to candidates about specific expectations. Option B. Implementing a multifaceted communication strategy that details the examination's purpose, format, assessment criteria, and explicit rules regarding academic integrity, alongside robust invigilation procedures. Option C. Focusing primarily on the rigorous difficulty of the examination and the severe penalties for any form of cheating, without providing detailed information on the exam structure or preparation guidelines. Option D. Emphasizing the university's commitment to academic excellence and the importance of a fair selection process, while leaving the specifics of exam preparation and integrity rules to the discretion of individual candidates. Correct answer is B. Implementing a multifaceted communication strategy that details the examination's purpose, format, assessment criteria, and explicit rules regarding academic integrity, alongside robust invigilation procedures. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in ensuring that prospective students are fully aware of the academic requirements and expectations for admission to Bayt University Karbala, specifically concerning the integrity of the entrance examination process. The challenge lies in balancing the university's need to assess candidates fairly and effectively with the ethical obligation to prevent any form of academic misconduct. Careful judgment is required to uphold the university's reputation and the value of its degrees. The correct approach involves a comprehensive and transparent communication strategy that clearly outlines the examination's purpose, format, and the consequences of any breach of academic integrity. This aligns with the university's regulatory framework, which implicitly mandates fair assessment and the prevention of cheating to maintain academic standards. Ethically, this approach demonstrates respect for the candidates by providing them with all necessary information to prepare appropriately and understand the rules, fostering an environment of trust and fairness. An approach that focuses solely on punitive measures without prior clear communication fails to establish a foundation of understanding and fairness. This would be an ethical failure, as it does not adequately inform candidates of expectations, potentially leading to unintentional breaches. It also risks undermining the university's commitment to a fair selection process. An approach that emphasizes the difficulty of the exam without detailing the assessment criteria or the university's commitment to academic integrity is also problematic. This could create undue anxiety and may not effectively guide candidates on how to prepare, potentially leading some to seek illicit means of success. It fails to meet the ethical standard of providing clear guidance for assessment, an approach that delegates the entire responsibility of exam integrity to external invigilators without establishing clear internal university guidelines and communication protocols is insufficient. While invigilators play a role, the university itself has a primary ethical and regulatory responsibility to define and communicate its standards of academic conduct and the examination process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a proactive and transparent approach. This includes 1. Clearly defining the objectives and format of the entrance examination. 2. Developing comprehensive guidelines on academic integrity and the rules of the examination. 3. Communicating these guidelines effectively and in advance to all prospective students through multiple channels. 4. Ensuring that the examination process itself is designed to minimize opportunities for misconduct. 5. Establishing clear procedures for addressing any suspected breaches of integrity, ensuring fairness and due process. Question 10. Implementation of a fair and transparent admissions process at Bayt University Karbala requires strict adherence to its examination regulations. A prospective student's relative, who is an alumnus of the university, approaches an admissions officer and expresses concern about the student's preparedness for the upcoming entrance exam. The alumnus subtly suggests that providing some guidance on the types of questions that might appear would be greatly appreciated and would ensure the student's success. What is the most ethically and regulatorily sound course of action for the admissions officer? Option A. Politely decline the request, explaining that all candidates must be assessed on their own merits according to the established examination guidelines, and reaffirming the university's commitment to a fair and impartial admissions process. Option B. Discreetly share a few sample questions with the alumnus, claiming they are for practice purposes to help the relative prepare. Option C. Agree to provide general study tips that are publicly available and do not reveal any specific exam content, while assuring the alumnus that this will help their relative. Option D. Inform the alumnus that while direct assistance is not possible, the university offers paid preparatory courses that could benefit their relative. The correct answer is A. Politely decline the request, explaining that all candidates must be assessed on their own merits according to the established examination guidelines, and reaffirming the university's commitment to a fair and impartial admissions process. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve positive outcomes for prospective students. The university entrance exam at Bayt University Karbala is designed to assess a candidate's foundational knowledge and aptitude, ensuring a fair and equitable selection process. Misrepresenting a candidate's qualifications or providing them with an unfair advantage undermines this core principle and violates ethical standards expected of educational institutions and their representatives. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the established examination procedures and ethical guidelines of Bayt University Karbala. This means ensuring that all candidates are assessed based on their own merits and that no form of academic dishonesty is facilitated or condoned. This aligns with the university's commitment to academic excellence and the integrity of its admissions process, as implicitly mandated by its regulatory framework for entrance examinations, which prioritizes fairness and meritocracy. Providing a candidate with advanced knowledge of specific exam questions or offering to manipulate their results constitutes a severe ethical and regulatory breach. This action directly contravenes the principles of fair assessment and academic honesty, which are fundamental to any reputable educational institution. Such behavior erodes trust in the university's admissions process and can lead to the enrollment of unqualified students, ultimately diminishing the academic standing of the institution. Furthermore, it creates an unfair disadvantage for honest candidates who have prepared diligently. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's code of conduct and examination regulations. When faced with a request that compromises academic integrity, a professional must prioritize ethical obligations over personal or external pressures. This involves politely but firmly refusing the improper request, explaining the adherence to established procedures, and, if necessary, reporting the incident to the appropriate university authorities to ensure the integrity of the examination process is maintained. Question 11. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential discrepancy in an applicant's performance on the Bayt University Karbala entrance examination, with the applicant subsequently providing a detailed explanation of unforeseen personal circumstances that significantly impacted their preparation and performance on the day of the exam. The admissions committee must decide how to proceed. Option A. Reject the applicant's application outright due to their failure to achieve the expected score on the entrance examination. Option B. Immediately accept the applicant based on their explanation of personal circumstances, disregarding the entrance examination results. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's past academic achievements and schedule a structured interview to assess their knowledge and motivation, while maintaining the integrity of the original examination score. Option D. Adjust the applicant's entrance examination score upwards to account for the reported personal circumstances. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's past academic achievements and schedule a structured interview to assess their knowledge and motivation, while maintaining the integrity of the original examination score. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to fairly assess applicants. The entrance exam is a critical gatekeeper, and any deviation from established procedures, even with good intentions, can undermine its validity and fairness. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the assessment process remains robust and defensible. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the applicant's previous academic record and a structured interview to probe their understanding and motivation. This aligns with the principles of a holistic admissions process, which is often implicitly or explicitly encouraged by university regulations aimed at selecting well-rounded and capable students. By seeking further information through established channels like academic transcripts and interviews, the admissions committee can gather objective evidence to support their decision, thereby upholding the integrity of the examination process and ensuring a fair evaluation based on a broader set of criteria than a single exam score. This approach respects the spirit of the entrance exam while allowing for a nuanced assessment. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on the applicant's self-reported mitigating circumstances without independent verification. This fails to adhere to the principle of objective assessment, as it places undue weight on subjective claims. It also risks creating a precedent that could be exploited, compromising the fairness of the admissions process for all applicants. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the applicant based on a single exam performance without considering potential extenuating factors or alternative assessment methods. This demonstrates a lack of flexibility and a failure to apply a comprehensive evaluation strategy, potentially overlooking a deserving candidate. A third incorrect approach would be to arbitrarily adjust the applicant's exam score based on their stated difficulties. This directly violates the principle of standardized assessment and introduces bias, undermining the credibility of the entire examination system. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes fairness, transparency, and adherence to established university policies. This involves 1. Understanding the specific regulations governing admissions and examinations at Bayt University Karbala. 2. Gathering all relevant information, both from the exam and from other sources, in a systematic and objective manner. 3. Evaluating this information against defined criteria. And 4. Documenting the decision-making process thoroughly. When faced with unusual circumstances, the framework should include provisions for seeking clarification from relevant university bodies or committees to ensure compliance and ethical conduct. Question 12. During the evaluation of a candidate's submission for the Bayt University Karbala entrance exam, an examiner notices that the work, while demonstrating a good grasp of the subject matter, contains a minor factual error that does not fundamentally undermine the overall argument. The examiner also knows that this candidate is the son of a prominent local religious scholar who has expressed strong support for the university. How should the examiner proceed? Option A. Discreetly inform the candidate's father about the minor error, suggesting the candidate could submit a revised version to rectify it before final scoring. Option B. Adjust the score slightly upwards to account for the candidate's potential and the positive association with a respected community figure, ensuring the factual error is overlooked. Option C. Evaluate the submission strictly on its academic merit, focusing on the accuracy of the factual content and the overall quality of the argument, and assign a score based solely on the established marking criteria. Option D. Consult with other members of the examination committee to discuss the factual error and its potential impact on the overall assessment, seeking consensus on how to address it within the established marking scheme. The correct answer is C. Evaluate the submission strictly on its academic merit, focusing on the accuracy of the factual content and the overall quality of the argument, and assign a score based solely on the established marking criteria. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the university's commitment to fair evaluation. The examiner must navigate the ethical obligation to uphold the integrity of the entrance exam process, while also ensuring that all candidates are assessed fairly based on their demonstrated knowledge and abilities, as per Bayt University Karbala's established examination regulations. The pressure to maintain high standards can create a temptation to deviate from strict procedural fairness. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial review of the candidate's submitted work, focusing solely on the content and its alignment with the examination's objectives and marking scheme. This adheres to the university's regulatory framework, which mandates objective assessment and prohibits any form of bias or undue influence. By evaluating the work on its merits, the examiner upholds the principle of academic honesty and ensures that the entrance exam accurately reflects the candidate's qualifications. An incorrect approach that involves considering external factors, such as the candidate's perceived potential or background, violates the core principles of merit-based evaluation enshrined in the university's guidelines. This introduces subjectivity and bias, undermining the fairness of the examination process and potentially leading to the admission of less qualified candidates, thereby compromising the academic standards of all Bayt University Karbala. Another incorrect approach that involves seeking informal recommendations or endorsements from faculty members outside the official examination committee bypasses established university procedures for candidate assessment. This can create an appearance of impropriety and compromise the independence of the evaluation, as such recommendations may not be based on objective academic criteria and could introduce undue influence, contrary to the university's commitment to transparent and equitable admissions. The professional reasoning process in such situations should involve a strict adherence to the documented examination protocols and ethical guidelines of all Bayt University Karbala. Professionals must prioritize objectivity, fairness, and transparency in all assessment activities. When faced with ambiguity or potential conflicts, seeking clarification from the examination committee or relevant university authorities, rather than making subjective judgments or circumventing established procedures, is crucial for maintaining professional integrity. Question 13. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of unusually similar phrasing and structure across multiple student submissions for a core course assignment, raising concerns about potential academic misconduct. What is the most appropriate initial course of action for the academic integrity officer? Option A. Conduct a preliminary review of the flagged submissions to identify the specific nature of the similarities and gather initial evidence before proceeding. Option B. Immediately notify the course instructor and request disciplinary action against the students involved based on the system's alert. Option C. Archive the system alert without further action, assuming the monitoring system may have generated a false positive. Option D. Directly confront the students with the system's findings and demand an explanation for the similarities. The correct answer is B. Immediately notify the course instructor and request disciplinary action against the students involved based on the system's alert. Explanation. The monitoring system demonstrates a potential breach of academic integrity by flagging unusual patterns in student submissions. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced judgment that balances the need to uphold university regulations against the risk of falsely accusing a student. The university's commitment to academic honesty, as outlined in its internal regulations and ethical guidelines for student conduct, necessitates a thorough and fair investigation process. The correct approach involves a multi-step verification process that prioritizes fairness and due process. This begins with a preliminary review of the flagged submissions to identify the specific nature of the anomaly. If the anomaly persists and suggests potential academic misconduct, the next step is to gather further evidence, which might include comparing the submission to previous work by the student, checking for plagiarism using approved software, and, if necessary, discreetly consulting with the instructor. Crucially, before any formal action is taken, the student must be given an opportunity to explain the circumstances surrounding their submission. This aligns with the principles of natural justice and the university's commitment to providing a fair hearing to all students, as implicitly required by its charter and student conduct policies. An incorrect approach would be to immediately assume academic misconduct based solely on the system's alert. This fails to acknowledge that monitoring systems can generate false positives, or that there might be legitimate, non-malicious reasons for the observed patterns. Such an immediate accusation would violate the student's right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty and could lead to severe reputational damage and undue stress for the student, contravening the university's ethical obligations to its student body. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the alert altogether. This would undermine the purpose of the monitoring system, potentially allowing academic misconduct to go undetected, and thereby compromising the integrity of the university's academic programs and the value of its degrees. This inaction would be a dereliction of duty in upholding the university's standards. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes evidence-based judgment and adherence to established procedures. This involves 1. Acknowledging the alert and its potential significance. 2. Conducting a preliminary, objective assessment of the flagged data. 3. Following established university protocols for investigating potential academic integrity issues, which typically include gathering evidence, consulting relevant parties, and ensuring the student has a chance to respond. 4. Making a final determination based on the totality of the evidence, always erring on the side of fairness and due process. Question 14. Performance analysis shows that a highly recommended candidate, whose family has strong ties to influential community leaders, has applied for admission to Bayt University Karbala. While the candidate's academic record is borderline and does not definitively meet the published minimum requirements for the program, the recommending influential figure has personally vouched for their potential and character. The university's admission regulations strictly stipulate that all admissions must be based on a comprehensive evaluation of academic merit and adherence to published criteria. Which of the following represents the most appropriate and ethically sound approach for the admissions committee to take? Option A. Consider the influential recommendation as a significant factor, potentially allowing for a slight deviation from the minimum academic requirements if the committee believes the candidate has strong potential. Option B. Decline the application immediately due to the borderline academic record without further evaluation to avoid any perception of undue influence. Option C. Evaluate the candidate strictly based on the published admission criteria and the university's established policies, documenting the assessment process and the decision, regardless of the recommendation. Option D. Inform the influential figure that the candidate's application is being reviewed and that their recommendation will be taken into consideration alongside other factors, without specifying how much weight it will carry. Correct answer is C. Evaluate the candidate strictly based on the published admission criteria and the university's established policies, documenting the assessment process and the decision, regardless of the recommendation. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in academic institutions, ensuring fairness and adherence to established admission criteria while managing the influence of external factors. The professional challenge lies in balancing the university's commitment to meritocracy and its regulatory obligations for transparent and equitable admissions with potential pressures or recommendations from influential individuals. This requires a deep understanding of Bayt University Karbala's specific admission regulations and ethical guidelines. The correct approach involves a rigorous and objective evaluation of all applicants based solely on the published admission criteria and the university's established policies. This upholds the integrity of the admission process, ensures equal opportunity for all candidates, and aligns with the university's commitment to academic excellence as mandated by its internal regulations and any overarching educational directives from the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research in Iraq. This approach prioritizes fairness, transparency, and adherence to established rules, which are fundamental ethical and regulatory principles for any educational institution. An incorrect approach would be to deviate from the established admission criteria based on the recommendation of an influential figure. This action would violate the principle of equal opportunity, undermine the merit-based selection process, and potentially contravene the university's admission regulations. Such a deviation could be seen as favoritism or undue influence, leading to a loss of public trust and potential disciplinary action for those involved. It also risks admitting students who may not meet the academic standards, impacting the overall quality of education and the university's reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the recommendation entirely without a proper, documented justification based on the applicant's qualifications relative to the admission criteria. While adhering to criteria is paramount, a complete disregard without due consideration might be perceived as unprofessional or dismissive, especially if the recommendation is from a recognized stakeholder. However, the primary failure here is not in the dismissal of the recommendation, but in the potential for it to be based on factors other than objective merit, which is the core regulatory and ethical concern. The correct approach is to evaluate the applicant against the criteria, and if they do not meet them, the recommendation becomes irrelevant from an admission standpoint. The professional decision-making process for such situation should involve a clear understanding of the university's admission policies and ethical codes. When faced with external influence, the professional should 1. Reaffirm the established admission criteria and procedures. 2. Objectively assess the applicant's qualifications against these criteria. 3. Document the assessment process and the basis for any decision, ensuring it is solely based on merit and adherence to regulations. 4. If the applicant does not meet the criteria, clearly and professionally communicate this to the recommender, emphasizing the university's commitment to fair and transparent admissions. 5. Seek guidance from senior administration or the admissions committee if there is any ambiguity or pressure to deviate from policy. Question 15. The monitoring system demonstrates a pattern of potential anomalies in the submission of supporting documents for a cohort of applicants to the Bayt University Karbala's entrance examination. These anomalies include inconsistencies in dates and the presence of digital signatures that appear to deviate from standard university templates. The admissions office is tasked with ensuring the integrity of the application process. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Publicly announce the names of the applicants whose documents have been flagged for review to inform the wider applicant pool. Option B. Initiate a confidential review of the flagged applications by the admissions committee, cross-referencing the anomalies with applicant records and university policy, and documenting all findings and decisions. Option C. Immediately reject all applications flagged by the monitoring system to maintain the integrity of the admissions process. Option D. Forward the flagged applications directly to the university's IT department for an immediate system audit without further internal review. The correct answer is B. Initiate a confidential review of the flagged applications by the admissions committee, cross-referencing the anomalies with applicant records and university policy, and documenting all findings and decisions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between maintaining academic integrity and ensuring a fair and transparent admissions process. The university's reputation and the trust of prospective students are at stake. A rigorous monitoring system is crucial for upholding these standards. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented review of the monitoring system's findings, followed by a confidential discussion with the relevant admissions committee members. This ensures that any potential irregularities are addressed impartially and in accordance with established university policies and the principles of fairness. The justification lies in adhering to the Bayt University Karbala's internal regulations for admissions, which mandate thorough vetting of applications and a structured process for handling discrepancies. This approach prioritizes due diligence and upholds the ethical obligation to ensure equitable treatment for all applicants. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the flagged applications without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of system errors or misinterpretations, potentially leading to the unjust exclusion of deserving candidates. It also bypasses the established procedural safeguards designed to ensure fairness. Another incorrect approach would be to publicly disclose the names of the applicants whose applications were flagged. This constitutes a breach of confidentiality and could unfairly damage the reputation of the individuals involved, violating ethical principles of privacy and respect. A further incorrect approach would be to rely solely on the automated flagging system without any human oversight or validation. While automated systems are valuable tools, they are not infallible and require human judgment to interpret their outputs and make informed decisions, especially in sensitive areas like university admissions. This approach neglects the critical element of professional discretion and contextual understanding. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Understanding the specific university policies and procedures governing admissions and application review. 2. Recognizing the ethical imperative to treat all applicants fairly and with respect for their privacy. 3. Prioritizing a systematic, evidence-based approach to investigation. 4. Consulting with relevant stakeholders and decision-making bodies as per established protocols. 5. Maintaining thorough documentation of all steps taken and decisions made. Question 16. Stakeholder feedback indicates a perception among some students that the recent midterm examination in a course subject may have contained questions that were not adequately covered in the course syllabus, potentially impacting the fairness of the assessment. As a member of the university's Academic Affairs Committee, what is the most appropriate initial step to address this concern, while upholding the principles of academic integrity and due process as per Bayt University Karbala's regulations? Option A. Initiate a formal review of the examination questions against the official course syllabus and relevant learning objectives, and discreetly consult with the course instructor to gather their perspective on the question development process. Option B. Advise the course instructor to unilaterally adjust the grading scale for the examination to accommodate students who may have struggled with perceived out-of-syllabus questions. Option C. Publicly acknowledge the feedback and inform students that a thorough investigation into potential syllabus deviations will commence without specifying the course or instructor. Option D. Immediately announce a re-examination for all students in that course to ensure fairness, pending a full investigation into the feedback. Correct answer is A. Initiate a formal review of the examination questions against the official course syllabus and relevant learning objectives, and discreetly consult with the course instructor to gather their perspective on the question development process. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to address student concerns effectively and transparently, all within the framework of Bayt University Karbala's established regulations and ethical guidelines. The core difficulty lies in responding to feedback that suggests a potential breach of examination fairness without immediately resorting to punitive measures that could undermine student trust or create an atmosphere of suspicion. The university must navigate this delicate situation by adhering strictly to its own internal policies regarding academic misconduct, examination procedures, and student grievance mechanisms. The correct approach involves a systematic, evidence-based investigation that respects due process and confidentiality. This means acknowledging the feedback, initiating a review of the examination process and materials in question, and gathering objective information before making any conclusions or taking action. This aligns with the university's responsibility to uphold academic standards, while also ensuring a fair and equitable examination environment for all students. Such a process is ethically mandated to prevent unfounded accusations and to ensure that any disciplinary actions are justified and proportionate. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the feedback without investigation, as this would disregard student concerns and potentially allow for genuine irregularities to persist, thus failing in the university's duty of care and academic oversight. Another incorrect approach would be to publicly announce an investigation or disciplinary action based solely on unsubstantiated feedback. This would violate principles of natural justice, potentially prejudicing students and damaging the university's reputation. Furthermore, implementing immediate, broad changes to examination procedures based on a single feedback instance, without proper analysis, could disrupt the academic calendar and create unnecessary anxiety among the student body, demonstrating a lack of reasoned judgment and adherence to established protocols. Professionals in university administration should employ a structured decision-making process when faced with such feedback. This process typically involves 1. Acknowledging and documenting the feedback received. 2. Assessing the nature and severity of the concern. 3. Consulting relevant university policies and regulations. 4. Initiating a discrete and objective fact-finding investigation. 5. Determining appropriate next steps based on evidence, which may include internal reviews, consultations with faculty, or formal inquiries. 6. Communicating findings and actions transparently and appropriately, respecting confidentiality where required. Question 17. System analysis indicates that Bayt University Karbala is facing a critical shortage of qualified faculty in several key departments, leading to pressure to expedite the hiring process for the upcoming academic year. A candidate presents a compelling curriculum vitae with extensive research publications and a degree from a foreign institution. However, the university's standard procedure for verifying foreign credentials is time-consuming. What is the most appropriate approach to ensure both timely hiring and adherence to academic integrity standards? Option A. Accept the candidate's degree without independent verification, provided it is from an institution that appears reputable on the surface, to meet the immediate staffing needs. Option B. Prioritize the candidate's practical experience over the verification of their academic credentials, assuming their expertise is sufficient for teaching. Option C. Proceed with the hiring of the candidate based on their strong research profile and self-attested degree, initiating the formal verification process after the appointment. Option D. Conduct a thorough verification of the candidate's foreign academic credentials through recognized channels, even if it slightly delays the final hiring decision, while exploring interim solutions for departmental needs. The correct answer is C. Proceed with the hiring of the candidate based on their strong research profile and self-attested degree, initiating the formal verification process after the appointment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for qualified faculty and the rigorous, potentially time-consuming, process of verifying academic credentials. Pressure to fill positions quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise the integrity of the hiring process, potentially admitting candidates who do not meet the established academic standards. Careful judgment is required to balance efficiency with due diligence. The correct approach involves a systematic verification of all submitted academic documents against the standards set by Bayt University Karbala and relevant Iraqi higher education regulation. This includes confirming the authenticity of degrees, transcripts, and any other stated qualifications through direct contact with issuing institutions or recognized credential evaluation services. This approach is ethically sound and professionally mandated by the university's commitment to academic excellence and adherence to national accreditation standards, which require verifiable qualifications for faculty appointments. It ensures that only genuinely qualified individuals are appointed, upholding the university's reputation and the quality of education provided. An incorrect approach would be to rely solely on the candidate's self-declaration of qualifications without independent verification. This fails to meet the university's obligation to ensure the academic integrity of its faculty and could lead to the appointment of individuals with misrepresented or fraudulent credentials. This violates the ethical principle of honesty and transparency in professional dealings and contravenes the spirit, if not the letter, of regulations governing academic appointments, which implicitly require verified qualifications. Another incorrect approach would be to accept credentials from institutions not recognized by the Iraqi Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research, even if they appear legitimate on the surface. This demonstrates a lack of awareness or disregard for the established framework of academic recognition within Iraq, potentially leading to the appointment of faculty whose qualifications are not considered valid for teaching at a university level. This is a regulatory failure, as it bypasses the official accreditation and recognition processes essential for academic institutions. A further incorrect approach would be to prioritize candidates who claim extensive practical experience over verified academic credentials, especially if this leads to waiving the verification process for their academic qualifications. While practical experience is valuable, academic qualifications form the foundational basis for teaching and research at a university. Circumventing the verification of these foundational qualifications based on other factors undermines the academic standards and the established criteria for faculty appointment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's hiring policies and relevant national regulations. When faced with time pressures, professionals should advocate for sufficient time to complete due diligence. If time constraints are extreme, they should seek formal approval for any deviations from standard procedures, clearly outlining the risks and proposing mitigation strategies. The guiding principle should always be to uphold academic integrity and adhere to established standards, even when faced with operational challenges. Question 18. Stakeholder feedback indicates that some applicants to the Bayt University Karbala entrance exam may have experienced unexpected difficulties with certain sections of the examination, raising concerns about potential inconsistencies in question difficulty or clarity. The university administration needs to decide on the most appropriate course of action to address these concerns, while upholding the integrity of the entrance examination process. Option A. Immediately adjust the passing scores for all candidates to accommodate the perceived difficulty of the exam as suggested by the feedback. Option B. Ignore the feedback, as the entrance examination has already been administered and results are pending. Option C. publicly announce that the exam was challenging and encourage students to focus on future opportunities rather than dwelling on the current results. Option D. Convene an independent academic committee to review the examination materials and the feedback received, and to recommend appropriate actions based on their findings. The correct answer is D. Convene an independent academic committee to review the examination materials and the feedback received, and to recommend appropriate actions based on their findings. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to address student concerns raised through feedback. The challenge lies in interpreting and acting upon feedback that suggests a potential issue with the exam's fairness, without compromising the established examination procedures or the integrity of the assessment process. Careful judgment is required to determine the appropriate course of action, ensuring that any response is both responsive to feedback and adheres to the university's regulations and ethical standards for examination. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the examination materials and procedures by an independent academic committee. This committee, tasked with upholding the university's academic standards, would objectively assess the validity of the stakeholder feedback. Their role is to determine if the feedback points to genuine flaws in the exam's design, content, or administration that could have unfairly disadvantaged students. This approach is ethically sound and professionally responsible as it prioritizes fairness and due process. It aligns with the principles of academic governance that require objective evaluation of assessment instruments and procedures. By involving an independent body, the university demonstrates a commitment to transparency and impartiality in addressing concerns, thereby safeguarding the credibility of its entrance examinations. An incorrect approach would be to immediately alter the exam results based solely on the feedback, without any form of objective verification. It bypasses the established procedures for exam review and could lead to arbitrary adjustments that undermine the fairness of the assessment for all candidates. It fails to uphold the principle of equal treatment and could set a precedent for future exams where results are subject to subjective interpretation of feedback. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the feedback entirely without any investigation. This demonstrates a lack of responsiveness to stakeholder concerns and can erode trust in the university's commitment to fair assessment practices. It fails to acknowledge the potential for legitimate issues within the examination process and neglects the ethical obligation to ensure that assessments are conducted in a manner that is both rigorous and equitable. A further incorrect approach would be to publicly disclose the specific details of the stakeholder feedback and the names of the individuals who provided it. This would violate principles of confidentiality and could lead to an uncomfortable or even hostile environment for students and faculty, potentially discouraging future feedback and creating unnecessary conflict. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a structured process. First, acknowledge and record the feedback. Second, assess its nature and potential impact. Third, initiate an objective review process involving relevant academic authorities. Fourth, communicate the findings and any subsequent actions transparently and professionally, respecting confidentiality. Question 19. Stakeholder feedback indicates a prominent community figure has strongly recommended a specific applicant for admission to a competitive program at Bayt University, Karbala, emphasizing the applicant's potential, but providing limited specific academic evidence. The admissions committee is aware of the university's commitment to fair and merit-based admissions as outlined in its internal regulations. How should the admissions committee proceed? Option A. Grant the applicant immediate admission to the program, citing the strong recommendation from the community figure as a primary factor in the decision. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive and objective evaluation of the applicant's academic records, test scores, and any other documented qualifications against the established admission criteria, while acknowledging the recommendation but not allowing it to supersede the objective assessment. Option C. Inform the community figure that the applicant's admission is guaranteed due to their influence, and then proceed with a perfunctory review of the applicant's documents. Option D. Reject the applicant outright due to the perceived undue influence, without a thorough review of their qualifications. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive and objective evaluation of the applicant's academic records, test scores, and any other documented qualifications against the established admission criteria, while acknowledging the recommendation but not allowing it to supersede the objective assessment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing student admissions and the potential impact of external pressures. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the admissions process remains fair, transparent, and compliant with all Bayt University Karbala's established regulations and ethical standards. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's qualifications against the established admission criteria, without undue influence from external parties. This upholds the principle of meritocracy and ensures that all applicants are evaluated on a level playing field, aligning with the university's commitment to academic excellence and fairness as enshrined in its admission policies and general ethical guidelines for educational institutions. An incorrect approach that prioritizes the external recommendation over objective assessment would fail to adhere to the university's admission regulations. This could be seen as a breach of fairness and could undermine the credibility of the admissions process. Furthermore, yielding to such pressure without due diligence could set a precedent for future undue influence, compromising the university's integrity. Another incorrect approach, which involves immediately granting admission based solely on the recommendation without any verification, demonstrates a disregard for established procedures and a potential for favoritism. This violates the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants and could lead to the admission of unqualified candidates, thereby lowering academic standards. A professional reasoning framework for such situations should involve 1. Understanding and strictly adhering to the university's official admission policies and procedures. 2. Objectively evaluating all applicants based on the defined criteria. 3. Maintaining confidentiality and impartiality throughout the process. 4. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them. 5. Escalating any perceived conflicts of interest or undue pressure to the appropriate university authorities for guidance and resolution, ensuring that decisions are made in accordance with regulations and ethical principles. Question 20. Investigation of the Bayt University Karbala Admissions Committee's response to pressure from senior administration to meet a specific enrollment quota for the upcoming academic year, despite a significant number of applicants not meeting the minimum academic requirements. Option A. Create a special category of provisional admission for unqualified candidates with the intention of providing remedial support later to artificially inflate the enrollment numbers. Option B. Strictly adhere to the established admission criteria and academic standards, transparently communicating any shortfall in enrollment to the senior administration with a detailed justification based on the quality of applicants. Option C. Expedite the review process for all applications, prioritizing those from candidates with connections or potential to meet the quota, even if their academic qualifications are borderline. Option D. Recommend lowering the minimum academic requirements for the current admission cycle to ensure the enrollment target is met, without prior consultation with the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research. The correct answer is B. Strictly adhere to the established admission criteria and academic standards, transparently communicating any shortfall in enrollment to the senior administration with a detailed justification based on the quality of applicants. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's administrative needs and the ethical obligations of maintaining academic integrity and fair admission processes. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can tempt individuals to overlook or manipulate criteria, jeopardizing the credibility of the entrance examination and the university itself. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional goals with ethical responsibilities. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial review of all applications, strictly adhering to the established admission criteria and procedures as outlined by Bayt University Karbala's academic regulations and the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research guidelines. This ensures fairness, transparency, and equal opportunity for all candidates, upholding the integrity of the admission process. This approach is ethically sound and compliant with regulatory frameworks that mandate merit-based admissions and prohibit undue influence or favoritism. An incorrect approach that prioritizes meeting enrollment targets by accepting unqualified candidates or creating special exceptions for certain applicants violates the principles of fairness and meritocracy. This undermines the academic standards of the university and is a direct contravention of the spirit and letter of admission regulations, which are designed to select the most capable students. Such actions can lead to a decline in academic quality and damage the university's reputation. Another incorrect approach that involves pressuring admissions officers to overlook genuine deficiencies in applications to fill quotas is unethical and potentially illegal. This constitutes a breach of professional duty and can be seen as a form of corruption or undue influence, which is strictly prohibited by academic and governmental regulations. It erodes trust in the institution and creates an unfair playing field for deserving candidates. A further incorrect approach that involves manipulating admission statistics or creating fabricated justifications for accepting substandard applications is a serious ethical and regulatory violation. This is a form of academic dishonesty and misrepresentation, which can have severe consequences for both the individuals involved and the university. It directly contradicts the requirement for accurate and transparent reporting of admission data. The professional decision-making process for such situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's admission policies, relevant governmental regulations, and ethical codes of conduct. When faced with pressure or conflicting priorities, professionals should 1. Reaffirm commitment to established policies and ethical principles. 2. Document all decisions and justifications meticulously. 3. Seek guidance from supervisors or relevant committees if ambiguity or pressure arises. 4. Escalate concerns through appropriate channels if unethical practices are suspected or encountered. 5. Prioritize the long-term integrity and reputation of the institution over short-term gains.